I've always been concerned about consumerism and the Western lifestyle, but sustainability was never really on my radar. I got an email from a classmate asking if I would be interested in joining her on a research team. We would be seeking and studying businesses that go beyond profit. I'm a bit of a skeptic when it comes to sustainability in business, but I'm hoping to discover businesses that actually place people and planet ahead of maximizing profit and see if that's even possible. Not everyone agreed.
Sustainability is currently impossible for an individual because they don't have the options.
Place-based local businesses can be truly sustainable. Big corporations can be less unsustainable.
There is a lot of financial interest in keeping things the way that they are.
If we talk about it in the contemporary sense, starting and testing, ventures that build, in my case, build social or ecological resilience, knowing that we're finding ourselves in a time with, we just came out of a pandemic. There's a war on, inflation's rampaging. Europe's got a 1 in 500 year drought right now, and so clearly things are changing.
I think if anything, especially the generation coming up, I think they have a strong sense that business has been a very negative impact on the environment.
Students have changed a lot. 15 years ago, they were still telling me, Bruno convinced me that sustainability is important when I would bring sustainability stuff into the classroom. That's changed in the last 5 years. Now students are saying, please tell us more. How do we do this? How do we do finance from a set perspective? How do we do marketing? How do we do these things? And they want the tools to do those things because they know their generation is going to have to deal with it.
So as business students, we understand that there are a number of challenges that businesses face when it comes to becoming more sustainable. But we are specifically looking for businesses that overcome these challenges by prioritizing social and environmental well-being rather than maximizing profit.
A social and ecological thought or set business seeks to enhance social and ecological well-being while earning enough money to remain financially viable.
In other words, it's not about making as much money as possible.
I think consumer awareness is what's driving sustainability as an industry today. Consumers are becoming a lot more educated and a lot more aware about everything that they touch, feel, interact with. And that's been great for the sustainability message because they realize what they are buying is not necessarily what they're getting.
Greenwashing definitely plays a role in a lot of the sustainability issues we see because, a lot of it's just kind of putting makeup on a pig where you are doing things like replacing the sensors in your building with, your lights that go on and off when people leave the room. But you aren't addressing any of the fundamental issues with your whole business model, which is that you are trying to sell things to people that they don't need.
So it's important for our research team to identify businesses that use a set or social and ecological thought approach to management and to differentiate them from other firms that use a profit-first approach.
Welcome everybody for our weekly meeting.
So our first firm is Tallgrass Prairie Bread Company. They use only organic and local ingredients. They support regenerative organic farmers, which nourishes and protects the land and soil. More than 70% of their inputs come from within a 200-mile radius, so very local. And they deliberately buy biodegradable and compostable packaging, even though it's more expensive than the alternative.
Very cool. I think we should add them to our list. They're definitely worth visiting.
What if instead of seeing business as only serving shareholders and maximizing their profits, we could see business as creating consumer value and creating products and services that are truly good and truly serve society? So what problem was Tallgrass trying to solve by opening this bakery?
I think it started with farming. I think that's what it was. I mean, the original conception was helping out farmers and being able to give fair prices for grain and bringing that grain production into the city.
The number one reason people start a business is because they want to march to their own beat. They want to be their own boss. They want to do things differently. And the second reason most people start a business is they want to make the world a better place. And even if you keep asking them, why did you start a business? Why did you start a business? Most are, less than half of entrepreneurs say it's to make money.
So tell me how Tallgrass was started.
In the 1980s, an awful lot happened. And all of a sudden, wheat prices plummeted, and farmers were getting the same amount of money from a bushel of wheat that they did 100 years before. So an awful lot of farmers were going broke.
Well, Tallgrass got started really for farmers.
So farm suicides were up. I personally knew a farmer who committed suicide, and it was just, yeah, it was pretty close. Farmers are not the kind of people who share easily their feelings.
Farming's an industry which doesn't get a lot of credit, mostly because there's no one around to give you that credit, right?
So she said, talk to the farmers, how much money do you need? And okay, let's see if we can make this thing work.
So the question was, should we do something about it? Could we? And we felt if the people in Winnipeg knew that their money could help the farmer, they would say yes to a much higher price. At that time, the going rate was 50 cents for a loaf. We were going to ask, I think, $1.25.
Every business creates financial benefits or drawbacks for society that are invisible to its customers. These are called externalities. For example, when a bakery decides to use local flour, it supports local jobs and reduces the carbon footprint of its supply chain. Each loaf of Tallgrass bread has baked into it about $2 worth of social and ecological benefits that are not evident in our regular grocery store loaves of bread. These benefits come from using place-based suppliers, hiring staff who face multiple barriers to employment, and from organic farming practices that enhance the ecosystem and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In this way, each year, Tallgrass Prairie Bread Company creates up to $200,000 worth of positive benefits for society and future generations. The amount saved in externalities is equal to 40% of the cost of a conventional loaf of bread, without the social and ecological damage.
At that time, it was doing what it's doing, local organic flour. And it has flourished quite well. I mean, it's been around, I think in Manitoba it's 150 years old, it's 30 years old. That's 1/5 of the time of the province.
It's a great way to make a living. We don't get rich, and that's okay. That wasn't the goal. We wanted to make our living, and so do our staff. And there are a lot of the immigrants are slowly buying houses. After a few years of working, they have, so that feels just immensely satisfying. Yeah.
I often kind of teeter-totter between like sustainability is possible and like we're doomed, sustainability is not possible, or like people care, people don't care at all. I guess it just depends like what I'm exposed to, and being exposed to businesses like this has really given me confidence in the fact that there are good people, there are good things happening, and a lot of people are just doing their best.
Getting a job in Winnipeg, people are overlooked for a number of different reasons. Maybe you've been to prison, maybe you have no qualifications. At Build, they say that doesn't matter.
Like think about the first job you ever got. And did you get that job completely on your own? Or did you have an aunt or an uncle or a sister or someone or a buddy? Construction workers usually remember that. They remember that question. They remember, oh yeah, I had an uncle, right? Our guys, they don't have, like the trainees that we work with, they don't have that uncle. We try to become that uncle for them, right? So what we try to do is we make those connections and we try to get them introduced into the job market.
With an organization like Build, they create all sorts of positive externalities that aren't embedded in their price and aren't seen in many ways by us in terms of their financial contribution, but they're very real financial contributions.
Build prioritizes hiring workers who have multiple barriers to employment. For every 5 workers it hires who were previously on welfare, Build saves the government $125,000 per year in social assistance costs. by hiring people who were previously in prison and giving them a stable income and a pathway back to society. Build saves the government about $100,000 a year per person who stays out of prison. By investing $25,000 to train each new employee and enabling workers to make a constructive contribution to the community, Build generates over $53,000 in positive externalities. Build has become a benchmark social enterprise and was founded by social entrepreneur Sean Loney. But what exactly does it mean to be a social entrepreneur?
A social entrepreneur uses market tools to solve social and/or environmental problems. I was a director of energy policy at the provincial government, and working with people in the neighborhood, they said what we really want is jobs. What the new paradigm is all about is understanding that poverty isn't actually about poor people. It's about the failure of the systems that they're interacting with. And so we got to change the damn systems. And to me, that's super exciting. It's like, wow, like all of this mess, this poverty, this cyclical violence is a result of bad systems. That's pretty exciting news, I think, for cities like Winnipeg, where we can create systems that actually help people to thrive. And it's cheaper than what we're doing now.
I love all of my coworkers, and I wish I could give them twice as much as we have, but we've all chosen to be here, and we all knew that what that sacrifice was going to be. Yeah, there's lots of solutions out there. The key to success of Build is that we just don't give up. There are some really big problems out there that will break your heart, but what will really break your heart is when you get to know the folks that we're working with and the amount of effort that they need to put in order to do what we would think was just an easy, simple thing. We had a trainee a few years back who came to us. She was a high-risk car thief. I'd heard the rumor that one of the reasons we all have immobilizers in our cars is because of her and her brothers. And as an adult, she had 5 lifetime bans on her driver's license and 5 children in the care of CFS. And then she worked with us for a few years, and on her 30th birthday, I drove her up to MPI, and she got her driver's license after successfully appealing those lifetime bans, becoming a mentor for generations of young Indigenous people who want training, and we all celebrated when all 5 of those kids came home. Life for her is way harder to do anything than for us. Way, way, way harder.
A business is also a tool.
Yeah.
So why don't more companies use their business as a tool to enact great change, like Build is?
Well, there are companies that are trying.
I think there are some enlightened few who realize that a change needs to happen on the grassroots level.
That's why entrepreneurial skills are critical, because we need entrepreneurs to build that path. But it's also really important for people to understand that usually the main financial beneficiary of the work that social entrepreneurs do is government.
The government has to spend a little bit. They are the largest consumer at the end of the day. They are the largest buyers in most countries. They are the ones who, if they do not take the strong stance when it comes to set thinking, then the business is not going to follow through.
Why are there more people? Some people just never thought of it. Listen, like, we have a rhythm to life in North America. Right? We do things in a certain way, and it's because it's the way that we were shown, and it's the way that our parents did it, and it's the way that our grandparents did it. Or maybe it's not what our grandparents did it, but it's the way that we grew up in, right? So when you have a paradigm, when you see the world functioning in a certain way, it's hard to think in a different way. It's hard to have that paradigm shift. Right? But once it's shown to you, then it's hard to unsee.
Today we're going to Longway Homestead. They're a sheep farm that practices regenerative agriculture principles. They are the only wool mill in Manitoba, and they also use responsible land management practices.
Hi Anna. Hi Savanna. Very nice to meet you. How's it going? Good, how are you? Welcome to the farm. Thank you so much. This is Bowden and this is Josh. Hi, nice to meet you.
Okay, so how would you describe Longway Homestead to someone?
I would say we are a regeneratively run fiber farm that focuses on growing quality wool and sustainable manufacturing through our wool processing mill. And we really take sort of a holistic approach to growing and manufacturing textiles.
And so how did Longway get started? What prompted you to start Longway?
So, Luke and I didn't come from a farming background. Obviously, our families came from farming backgrounds, but it was very conventional agriculture. So as we sort of started diving into how we wanted to manage this land and steward it, we were really inspired by different ideas: regenerative agriculture, permaculture, the ideas of Alan Savory and holistic management. So we really sort of take a holistic approach, and we want to encourage ecological diversity within the land base. We're working towards soil health. So I kind of always joke that we're not actually growing wool here, we're growing soil. I think unfortunately, ruminant livestock have gotten a really bad rap in the world of agriculture, and that's because there has been some real mismanagement of those flocks. But when managed properly, livestock can be absolutely incredible for building soil health and sequestering carbon from our atmosphere.
Carbon sequestration in soils can be useful for buying us time to wean ourselves off fossil fuels. 5-8% of the soil is alive. And soil health is often defined as what that 5 or 8% is doing and how it's functioning. Is it diverse enough to function? Is it mimicking what might happen in nature? It's critically important. We're trying to develop these regenerative practices, so we're wanting to increase the diversity of our agriculture.
Whenever somebody states what we're doing is we're a hobby farm, I push back on that a lot, because it's not a hobby. This doesn't feel like a hobby. This is our life. This is our business. And it also minimizes it across the board in general. If there's anybody else out there that is trying their best to grow their own food, run their own business, live their own lives, and you call it a hobby, that's ridiculous. That's completely disempowering from the effort that you're putting into being self-sustaining in however a way that you can make it possible.
And once people understand all the work that is involved in actually producing a skein of yarn or a t-shirt or a pair of jeans, they're going to value that clothing much more. So ultimately, we're just trying to highlight the transparency and the traceability of our textile system.
Before we care, maybe we need to understand and really understand that we have to do it. Because when we understand, then we will care. And when you care about something, then you act.
My number one sort of belief is that we all just need to consume less. And that goes back to this idea that our systems are not set up to give us what we need. They're set up to consume more and more constantly. And so, when we look historically at the way fashion has changed, it used to be just subsistence. We needed clothes to keep us warm and dry and functional while we carried on our everyday lives. And then it went to, a fashion sense where we had a summer clothing line and a winter clothing line. And then it went seasonal. We threw in spring and fall. And now clothing lines are putting out new fashion every 6 weeks.
The most insidious contributor to environmental devastation today is perhaps the fashion industry.
A lot of it is just how quickly we're consuming resources and how much shorter trend cycles are getting. And so people are consuming things that they know are going to have a very, very short shelf life.
We are stuck in a cycle of fast fashion, more clothing consumption than we need, and then discarding it. And the saddest part of that is that those of us that live in the global north, in Canada and the US and Europe, we are not experiencing the impacts of that system to its fullest.
If there was one thing that you wish Longway could inspire others to do, what would that be?
I'd say just go for it. I can't believe the amount of
negative encouragement we got from before we started. When people would come to us and say, well, we've done the research, we've done the numbers, and it's never going to work. And then we did it, and it worked. And if you want to see it get done, you'll make it happen. You'll make it get done.
So why is profit maximization, like so popular? Is it greed?
I think greed has something to do with it. Also, the sort of, I think there's an innate human desire that the people who come after you would have it better than you did.
The answer to this question is is capitalism.
Businesses care about what the consumer cares about. If consumers don't care, then businesses are not going to care.
Well, this is the economic system that we've created. But I think it's an important time to ask people, what is it that they actually want? And I think that we have to realize that we all want to feel abundance.
Profit is like oxygen. It's not why we live, but we need it to live, right? And so there has to be, and that's when we do MBA courses or BCom courses, there usually should be a business model behind it, so at least the business is financially sustainable. Maximizing profit, that I don't think is needed.
I think at its worst, business is fed by greed, but ultimately, going forward in this world we live in today, if your business is simply extracting, it's going to fail because you can't extract ad nauseum forever without it being ultimately irredeemable.
Recently, I spoke to a whole bunch of industrial companies, and I was shocked at how some of them are not even thinking about sustainability because they have never been asked the question, like, are you sustainable as a company? And that's where consumer awareness comes in. Like, only if we show the businesses that, yes, we do care, we ask the question, will they actually bother to figure out what the answer is going to be?
Ultimately, it would be nice to have all the answers for how industries can change to be more socially conscious, more environmentally sustainable. But I think just having people understand the impact of the products and services that they use is enough to get the conversation going. From there, it's just a matter of time before people realize that business as usual is not a long-term solution.
It's not my attitude.